This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this. Hello everyone, welcome to the Xcast. I have finally reached my minute count for this block. You will be getting Sarah Blair next time. So this is my final minute for a while. But thank you for joining me. We are the Xcast and we are going through the second film, I Want to Believe, minute by minute, as we did with the first film. And joining me, and who will be talking to me in a second, is John Kenneth Muir, who has joined me for these past 5 or 6 minutes. And thank you, everyone, for continuing to listen. If you do want to listen to future minutes ahead of time, by all means, come and join us on our Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/the Xcast. You can also find us on Instagram at the Xcast Pod, or on our Facebook group, the X-Files Basement, the Xcast Podcast Fan Group, and of course on Twitter or X, whichever you call it, at the X_cast. As I say, we are at our final minute. So this is minute 50, and it runs from 49 minutes to 49 minutes and 59 seconds, and is based entirely within the operating room that Scully is about to perform. Now, if memory serves me right, I'm not even sure there's any words in this episode, in this minute, so it's certainly going to be an interesting one to talk about. And as I say, John Kenneth Muir joins me for the final time, and it's going to be a really interesting minute to discuss. So, again, thank you everyone for joining us. And John, what do you think to this minute? Where do you think we are now? This is our final minute. What do you think to the minutes that we've done so far? Where can people generally find you online, John? Where can people find you online from what you're up to at the moment?
Right. So most recently, my full fiction, full cast audio drama, Enter the House Between. It's science fiction. It's drama. It's not a podcast like this, which is nonfiction, but actually fiction. It won a platinum AVA digital award for best audio drama in 2023. And so if you go to Spotify or Audible or any place where you listen to podcasts, if you listen to Enter the House Between, our first 9 episodes, and they tend to be an hour and a half long. I wrote and directed those. And it's sort of about a post-apocalyptic world and quantum physics and things like that. So people can find my work there. I'm also on Twitter at JK Muir, and my blog is Reflections on Film and Television at blogspot.com. And I also love to make friends on Facebook. I'm John Kenneth Muir there. So, any of those places, all my books are on Amazon. My most recent one, Horror Films 2000 to 2009, where I Want to Believe is reviewed a second time in there.
Okay, so we are here, John. We are here at the final minute of our story here for yourself. I will be back much later on. I think I'm going to get the scenes where Father Joe's in hospital, and he's realised that his connections with the abductors, not the women. So that is certainly an interesting perspective. Until then, though, we've got one final minute to talk about, and it's a minute which doesn't have much in it in case of transcript or script, but it is all about the operation. It is there, like we said in the last episode, it's kind of like an episode where we're very much in Scully's mindset. And I think if I read out my notes and then we can talk about it, really. We've already talked about last episode about the use of reflection in the glass of Scully. So the fact that that's interspersing into your mind, that you are seeing Scully's reflection, and it's done on purpose to kind of allow you to say, oh, this is a reflection of what Scully's thinking. I do think that the use of drill sounds and the long-bore needle, which is almost delivered in a ceremonial way. We talked about the music last time, and the music, the surgery music, is a wonderful piece of music, but the way that the delivery of this needle is delivered is very ceremonial to me. And then at the very end of this minute, we get to the point where the nurse is looking directly at camera, and there is some more to the operation, but it does bleed into Sarah's minutes next episode. So we're very much looking at this from that perspective. So what do you make to this kind of ceremonial aspect? And, and is quite, from a horror perspective, I suppose, the use of the drill sounds and things like that, which are very kind of, what's the word? Obviously, it is very clinical. It's very sanitized, but you do have these noises in the background, especially given the last minute where we've had kind of this kind of ethereal, abstract, meandering music, and we're getting that now, but we're interspersing that with these sounds.
It's very unnerving, and I think you're right to say that this is ceremonial. There's a ritualistic, religious component to that, and so again, you have to tie this thing, Our Lady of Sorrows, a Catholic hospital, the Catholic Church, the nuns, the Father, Scully's faith. All these things kind of come together in something that feels very ritualistic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of searching for the term. It's not like reading of the runes, but it's like, it's a ceremony. It's just like, it's a ceremony. It's a ritual. It's something that they're going through that carries some kind of meaning beyond directly what's happening. Now, I would compare this scene to a kind of similar scene from a very famous horror movie. If you go back to I think 1973 and The Exorcist, there was a very sick girl in that film, Regan, played by Linda Blair. The doctors kind of couldn't diagnose it, but there were these scenes where she went to the hospital and had to have a spinal tap, and it was very unnerving. And you're sort of left with the idea of modern science as, barbaric, right?
Yeah.
This poor girl is in pain. Gosh, that looks worse than being possessed by the devil. You know what I'm saying? She's having to go through a spinal tap, and, she's in horrible pain. And so, watching the surgery scene, and I want to believe, I thought about it and how it contrasts with that. We have here a figure of sympathy guiding this, but we do also have some of those notes, like you said, the high pitched. I mean, it sounds like a dental drill, right?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And we're getting shots of, Christian's skull. I mean, it's not like it's a Saw movie, but you know what I'm saying. You're still seeing, sort of upsetting imagery. But I think what makes the difference is that it's like Scully is guiding us, and this idea of ritual and ceremony is what's guiding Scully. So is she seeing this as her sacred religious ritual? I mean, that would be one way to interpret it. I think we're guided by her, but what is guiding Scully to do this? I think that may be a way to read this. But there are certainly competing things here. I mean, the imagery isn't really pretty, down to the sound effects. But again, at least unlike Regan in The Exorcist, we have somebody on our side through it. Christian has somebody who's there, right?
Yeah, well, as I say, it's all about the vibe. It's all about that feeling. As I said, the ceremonial thing. So there's and it bleeds into the next minute. So there's not much more we can say from that. So I think the best thing to do is obviously we'll get to what you're up to and where people can find you. But just before we do that, what are your final thoughts on this movie and the just your kind of new viewings of it and things before we wrap up? What as I say, this should be your final minute on the show for this. I hope you will get you back for another XCast episode in the future. But I want to believe, what are your final thoughts on it?
Well, I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here and to go minute by minute and to look at just these minutes, because now I'm really tantalized. I want to listen to this whole series. I want to go back and watch the film like this,
right?
With this kind of attention. I mean, I feel I watch with attention. I feel I watch movies with attention. I take notes. I look for montage theme connections, things like that. But, just going through this process with you, all of these new shades and contours have sort of risen to the surface. And listen, I already loved I Want to Believe. I could watch it over and over again.
Yeah.
But that belief has just sort of been reinforced by the process we've gone through. I'm seeing so much going on here. That makes me, so happy, because that's what this is all about. That's what appreciating art is about, is finding those notes, but maybe even finding out what they mean to you personally, right? It also makes me a little sad. It makes me a little sad because I really do feel the film got a really bum rap. I feel like it's, been persistently misunderstood by both mainstream and some X-Files fans. And I just think this process proves there's a whole lot more there. So I would say to anybody, if you don't like this film, of course you always have the right to your opinion, but maybe go back and look at, listen to this series, go back and watch those minutes and find if there's really something there to hold on to, because I really think there is. Like I said, this is my favorite X-Files film. I see it as a really necessary piece between the original series and where we are in the 2016 continuation.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you kind of can't have that without this in the middle.
No.
And the value of I Want to Believe, I think, is proven by that. Like, it fits in so well to what we now understand of as the grand sweep of the X-Files. So I love it. I want to believe, and I always will in this film.
Okay, we'll leave it at there. But yeah, if people are looking for you, where can people find you online?
So most recently, my full cast audio drama, Enter the House Between. It's science fiction. It's drama. It's not a podcast like this, which is nonfiction, but actually fiction. It won a platinum AVA digital award for best audio drama in 2023. And so if you go to Spotify or Audible or any place where you listen to podcasts, if you listen to Enter the House Between, our first 9 episodes, and they tend to be an hour and a half long. I wrote and directed those. And it's sort of about a post-apocalyptic world and quantum physics and things like that. So people can find my work there. I'm also on Twitter at JK Muir, and my blog is Reflections on Film and Television at blogspot.com. And I also love to make friends on Facebook. I'm John Kenneth Muir there. So, any of those places, all my books are on Amazon. My most recent one, Horror Films 2000 to 2009, where I Want to Believe is reviewed a second time in there.
So that leaves me to say thank you for joining me for this recent block of I Want to Believe Minute. I'm going to be handing over to Sarah Blair for next episode. She's going to take over the reins from now. If you want to find me, you can find me on Linktree at linktr.ee/r Muldrake. That's RMULDRAKE. And you can find out what I'm up to. My most recent situation is that I'm currently on the Red Dwarf podcast, Shipwrecked and Comatose, and you can also find my brand new Lost podcast, which is currently looking at the 20th anniversary of Lost, and we are starting that on its 20th anniversary in September, but we are doing some preamble episodes every month until that date. So if you do hear this before then please jump aboard The Magic Box, which is the podcast you can find there. And you can find that at The Magic Box Pod on Linktree. So thank you. And until next time, remember, as always, trust no one.